I just bought this, a Mitsubishi Evo 1, sight unseen from an auction 250 miles away. No paperwork, no history, and no explanation. The only thing they told me, this car hasn't been on the road since 2008. It doesn't run, it doesn't drive, and the ad gave no clue why it was taken off the road all that time ago. For all I know, the engine's seized. In this video, I'm gonna see what exactly I've bought. I'm gonna do a basic engine service, see if I can get it turning over, and by the end of it, we're gonna hope that it runs and drives. It could come back to life, or this could be a massive waste of money. The first order of business was to push the mystery Evo into the unit and find out more about it. Okay, so we know that this car hasn't been on the road for at least 16 years. And when a car's been off the road that long, you can't just jump in and turn the key. Even Finnegan and Freiberger are gonna tell you that. So there's a list of things we need to go through before we first turn that key and hope that it starts. And step one is fact finding. And what I mean by fact finding is we need to find out things about the car. For instance, Mitsubishi Evos love to rust. There's no point in us putting time and effort into this car if it's going to fold itself in half. So my hope is that because this car hasn't been on the road in 16 years, it's been dry stored. If it was outside, sitting on a road or in someone's driveway, I don't think there'd be much left of this car. It looks scabby. It looks, you know, it's been sat a while. So we've got a little bit of a crushed chassis rail here, but these tend to rust a lot worse than this. These are what's known as pinch welds. Lots of Japanese cars, they have this on the inner sill, a kind of thin strip that runs the whole way along. If it's been jacked up a lot, they will be crushed in, they'll be folded, they might be rusted out. That's all right. This is solid. For the price I paid for this, which I'll get onto in a minute, this is already looking good even if the engine is blown. And then the last thing, which is a bigger thing on the later Evos, is their rear chassis legs. Now, you can't actually see that without taking the whole subframe down, but you can get a kind of lay of the land by looking up in here. Oh, okay. Now that, it's not perfect, but it's not gonna fail an MOT. Another thing with doing this before you start tearing into it, you find things. Just seen, we've got aftermarket looking rear suspension dampers. That's pretty good. Same on both sides. GAB super dampers. Now that's kind of feeling to me like a Japanese fitted one. You tend to find lots of very cheap Japanese coils that they throw on the cars out there, because this car did start life in Japan. It was imported in, I believe, 2006. So it was only on the road for 2 or 3 years before it went off. I don't know what the story is on this car. I'm hoping someone watches this video and knows about this car and gets in contact about what happened, because it was on the road for 2 years and then went off. And from looking underneath it, it was in good condition when it came here, and then it just went and sat in a garage, which does worry me a bit. It makes me think, if it wasn't the body that went wrong, maybe it was something mechanical. Another important part, step one, fact finding, is you can work out what parts you're gonna need. Now, to get this car through an MOT, we're missing lug studs. So I'm gonna need to order that. Also, 15-inch OZ wheels. These are very cool. I might not be keeping them. If you look at most Evos, they are 5 lug pattern. They have 5x114.3. This is a 4x114.3. You find it on these early Evos. I'm going to convert this to a 5 stud because you can run a lot more cool wheels. So these I'll keep for now, and I do like them. I know there's gonna be a lot of people complaining in the comments, but 17s fit on this car really nicely. The WRC Evos had the 17-inch Enquiries. That's what I want to run. Another good bit of information I've just seen. Here you go, over here, Jay, can you see what that says?
4207.
4207, so that is the dot of the tyre. It's the first 2 numbers are the week of the year it was made, the second 2 numbers are the year. So 4207, the 42nd week of 2007. So these tyres were definitely put on after it came to the UK, before it went off the road. Far too old to be running again, but if you look at the amount of tyre life on them, they look like they were nearly new when this car went off the road. What happened to this car? Okay, bottom side, I'm happy with the car. I'm confident that it's worth putting the time into this chassis because it seems pretty solid from what we can see so far. The next part of fact finding I want to find out is all the parts that are missing, because in the listing, I could see there were some parts straight away that weren't in the car. For instance, the wiper arms. Now you might expect someone might take off the wipers themselves to replace them, but why would they take off the wiper arms? And then equally here, the washer nozzles, those are gone. So inside, the door card appears to be missing. The center console around the gear knob, that's missing too. And then the rear view mirror is missing too. So that coupled with the wipers that aren't there, kind of makes me think maybe this had a replacement windscreen at some point. Maybe something hit the windscreen. I'm not too sure. But things like a door card for an Evo 1, they're not that easy to find. So any missing parts are gonna become a little bit of an issue for us. We've just seen down there, there's our rear view mirror and our speaker. Maybe we can find some other parts. One thing they didn't show me in the auction was anything in the boot. So let's have a look what's in there.
Have you ever had your car written off? Because you might have been shortchanged and you might be owed some money.
The FCA have found that some insurers have been writing off cars under their value, which breaks their rules. Now they've warned firms, but now they're taking action.
Now, if that's happened to you in the last 6 years, even if the accident was your fault, you could reclaim the difference.
Imagine selling your car and being forced to take way lower than the value. That's how some people feel after a write-off. But FCA rules require insurers to pay a fair value.
Now, today's sponsor, Allegiant, an FCA-regulated claims management company, might be able to help. Complaints just like this are currently being won at the Financial Ombudsman Service.
You just give a few details and Allegiant will check if you're eligible. You don't have to use a claims company, you can do it yourself for free.
But if you want expert help, Allegiant works on a no-win, no-fee basis. The fees can range from 18 to 36%, including VAT, so make sure you check out the website in the description below for details.
It opens. Okay. It's not just some matting. Oh yes, though. Now that is a result. That is our driver's door card. Oh, this is good. So that's under the steering wheel cowl. These are the, yes. Oh, this is good. Oh, this is lucky. Blueprint. Yo, shout out Blueprint. Oil filters. We've got a load of Blueprint parts coming for this. Oh, that's not what you want to see. Firstly, it's Turkish Delight, which is a great choice. But what that is a box of really quite important looking bolts. Now, these to me are driveline. This is engine, this is gearbox, this is transfer case style bolts. But the fact that they're in here and not on the car, that's not so great. Wiper, the wiper arm. I was already worried about this. I'd done a little bit of research into finding the wiper arms for these Evos, and it looks like they're really quite hard to find. So I'm quite pleased that I have this. Oh, that's not helpful. I've just run the part number that's here for this, and this comes back as a wiper arm, not for an Evo 1, but for a Ford Escort from the 90s. So I don't think that's going to fit. Let's have a look if it fits on there. No, that doesn't really fit. Great. Square one on that. Other than that, we got some side sill plates, the boot floor carpet, which looks semi-intact, a jack, someone's bondage gear. Overall, I'm pretty happy. That's a good haul of parts that we need. Most of the interior we can put back together now. Just need a center console and a gear knob. But let's have a look at the engine because I haven't had a proper look at that yet. We don't have a bonnet prop. No battery. Straight away, there was a photo of the listing and you could see that there was no battery, so I know I need to do that. Why is there no battery though? What's happened? The engine is though otherwise complete. I can see the turbo is down there. Something that you might notice if you're familiar with Evos is that most Evo engines, the cams and this side are on this side. Evo 1, 2 and 3, they swapped them, well, they were originally this way around, and then for the rest of them, they turned the engine back around the other way, which means some parts are quite hard to find for these early Evos. Other than that, we look to have some aftermarket ignition leads, which I know is a common issue on these cars, so I've already bought some new ones. We have a strut brace, which is always worth it. Basically, every car that you import from Japan will have a strut brace, but everything otherwise there looks pretty normal. So we're gonna move on to step 2, which is putting a battery on this car to see if the electrics work, because if the whole loom is fried and no electrics work at all, it's not worth doing spark plugs then, is it? So I went out, I bought a battery. This was the first cost for the car, otherwise it was £80 for this battery. Now I'm not gonna turn the ignition fully on, because I don't want, if there is any fuel, we'll get to that in a little bit, to start pumping through in the fuel pump to prime, but let's just see if there's any lights on the dash. Oh, we've already got a light on. We've got a light saying that the door's open. Lights come up on the dash. Okay, so we've got some lights there. And after checking that all of the main electronics of the car seemed to work, I moved on to step 3, working out what fluids the car had in it. Not only does it look quite grey, it smells very fuely. If you're cranking your car and you've got no spark, and there's no spark going to it, you can flood the engine and it starts, essentially, fuel is making its way past the cylinders because it's not getting ignited, down into the oil. Your oil becomes very thin because of the petrol. Petrol isn't the same weight as the oil, and you can do some damage. So that is the first bit of not so great news. So brake fluid is looking very, very dark. So that we're gonna need to change all of that before it goes back on the road. This is also brake fluid in here. That actually looks okay. That doesn't look too bad in there. So maybe someone had a go at trying to get the brake master and the clutch master back going. Basically another bit of fact finding there, just working out what seems to be where. Let's have a look in the radiator. We have anything in there? Oh, dry as a bone in the radiator. Not worth panicking too much about yet, but is there a reason why there's no water in the radiator? Perhaps because it's in the engine. Power steering fluid, perfectly on the line as well. So mostly good signs that this car is pretty well taken care of. They kept the power steering topped up. The brake fluid looks quite new in the main reservoir. It's just the clutch reservoir that looks a little bit dark and old, but the engine oil is still quite worrying. We're gonna leave the engine oil in there for now, just to hand turn over the engine, which we'll do shortly. But then after that, if it looks like the engine is not seized and it might work, we'll swap it out with some new oil so we don't end up hurting the engine, running it on bad oil. Step number 4 is going to be checking inside the engine. Before we start turning over by hand, we can pop the spark plugs out, use a boroscope to just look in there and see if there's anything obviously wrong before we start messing with it. 4-tipped plug. Smells a little bit petrol-y, just a little bit old, but nothing too bad. I can't see anything that looks obviously terrible on that. I'm no expert. Matching plugs so far, also another good sign that whoever had this car before knew what they were doing. Boroscope, just a simple tool just to look down inside. That looks completely fine inside there. I'm gonna say it looks pretty fresh in there. Not new, but there's no carbon buildup, there's no carbon deposits on it. Usually you would see some, maybe there is a little bit on the middle here, but, oh, okay, so this is now, there's a little bit more carbony than the one before, you can now see. So this piston is further up in the engine than the first one, because obviously they're not all the same. They move at different points along the crankshaft. So this one is much further up in the cylinder, so you can see a bit more of the actual face. That's not shocking, there's no rust that I can see on it, but the pistons to me, I think look standard. I'll have to do some research in a sec, but I believe those are standard pistons. It doesn't look forged or aftermarket or anything like that. Last one, which is gonna be further down. That looks nice, it looks happy. I'm pretty happy with that. That makes me feel confident that we're gonna be able to turn it over by hand, which is step number 5. We're gonna see if it turns over by hand, and then we're gonna move on to a very important test. Jay, did you see if we had locking wheel nut in the car? I don't think it matters. I was about to get very worried that we didn't have locking wheel nut, and then I just happened to touch it. You'll see the actual reaction on my face. That's not so great. Okay, now what are those brake pads? We've got some blue on there, which could be EBC blue stuff. So some more track focused pads, which is interesting. I'm going to revert it all just back to kind of stock OEM stuff that I know works, and then we will build back up and upgrade from there. So after removing a few covers, we had access to turn the engine over by hand. I've got the ratchet on the crankshaft now. By turning this here, the pistons will move. It's in neutral, so if it turns and the engine spins, we're okay. I'm not going to go with a long extension bar. I'm just going to see if it just turns freely by hand first. Are we ready? Ready, Jay? Yeah? Okay, there was a little bit crunchy. I'm not a fan of that noise, but that might be all belts and things that haven't sat for a while, but it's turning. Oh, it's going freely now. I'm happy with that. It's gone through a couple cycles, so there's no interference, there's no valves hitting on pistons. That is a win. Riding high on that win, my spirits were immediately dampened when I found a sump full of muddy oil. As you might know, we are recently sponsored by Motul. Motul will now support us for all of our oil needs. Now, Motul have sent us out this oil testing kit. So what you can do is you can take a sample of your oil, you send it off to them, they come back and go, it's got 14% cheese in it, which means it's not good. I don't really think we need it to know that this is wrong, but I think I'm gonna still do it anyway, because it's kind of cool. We'll take a sample. Ah! I'm gonna do a bit of an engine flush. So I'm gonna take some other oil, not the oil that we're gonna use in the engine. I'm just gonna fill it back up, just to try and flush through as much as we can, make sure that get everything out of there, because I'm not a fan of that. That's a little bit better color. Okay, so I'm now gonna take the oil filter off and we're gonna cut into the oil filter and have a look, because part of me thinks that that oil is just bad because it's been sitting for so long. If oil has been sat in the sump and has then just been contaminated while it's there, we haven't turned the key, so there should be no reason that it's made its way around the engine. If it's not in the oil filter, we might be okay by just flushing the engine and maybe even taking the oil pan off. If it's inside the oil filter, then there's a chance that it's been run like that. But it just kept getting worse. Still definitely got a lot of that nasty contaminated oil. So this is the center of your oil filter. This will kind of accordion out. The actual oil filter itself, the filter material, doesn't have anything in it at all to worry about. I still lean towards the fact that this is just somehow contaminated oil that's got into the engine, just needs to be flushed out over and over and over again. The oil's not happy, we know that, that's a fact. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna fill it up with some more sacrificial oil, just again start flushing some new oil through it. We'll turn the key and do a compression test. It won't start, but we're gonna see if the valves and everything are happy in the top end, and then we're potentially good to clear out the engine as best we can, do a timing belt on it, and then see if this thing starts. So we're gonna turn over the engine shortly, but I don't want the fuel pump to start sending old dead fuel in, because that's gonna be another one of our steps. So what I'm gonna do is pull the fuel pump fuse that gives power to the fuel pump. So I'm gonna use Google Translate because it is in Japanese. This is a JDM import. Tail lamp, headlamp, radiator fan, starter, alternator. Oh, we've got the Gon Lada. I'm not sure what that one does. We've got the Shishuk fan, which and the Sweena. On the Falklamp. It could be the Falklamp. I'm not sure. Unfortunately, over years has lost some of its lettering. so it's not the most helpful. Alternator starter. Well, the starter's got nothing, doesn't have a starter one. I've just gone on to the Facebook group for Evo123 owners groups. Mega shout out to them. That's a very cool community of people who have got basically all the information in the files. Checked it online. They've said it is this one, the EC1 or ECI fuse. So we're going to pull this one out. There we go there. So that is what gives us power to our fuel pump. So without that now, we can turn the car over, alternator will work, the starter will work, and turn the engine over, but we won't get any fuel through from the pump, which I really don't want in here because we're going to replace all that. So, time to hook up the compression tester, see if this engine's any good. So this is a compression tester. You essentially install it in place of your spark plugs. You turn the engine over and it will build up pressure within the cylinder to tell you if there is compression within your pistons or not. There are better methods. Using a leak down tester will tell you not just the peak pressure, but also if it holds that pressure the whole time. Can't tell us if there's rod knock, for instance. It can tell us if it can make compression, because without compression, it's not gonna run. So I've put that in there semi-tight. So I'm gonna give the keys to Jay to turn over the car, and I'm going to stay with the camera and we're going to watch that dial and see what happens. After not putting the compression tester in the engine correctly and giving myself a heart attack, I reinstalled the tester, which now gave us perfectly acceptable readings across the board. Right, so that is 3 cylinders, all at 200. It all comes down to this last one. If this last one's 200, we're fine. Chuck a timing belt on it, chuck a fuel pump in it, and start trying to go. If this one is lower than 200, the engine has to come apart. My heart is kind of racing right now. I'm... 200, bang on across all 4. That is a pass on step 6. I'm happy with that. We're good to move on. Step 7 is going to be checking for spark. We know that was a little bit of a fuely smell from this car, as if someone might have been trying to start it and hadn't been able to start it. So I'm wondering if spark is going to be an issue. So I'm going to quickly put everything away. I'm going to put the old plugs back in these old leads, and we're going to see if we can get any spark when we crank it out of them. Okay, so all of the plugs are now back in their leads. We're going to turn the car over and see if we can get any strong spark down here and see if the spark is working. However, no matter what, the spark plugs wouldn't fire. So I switched over to a fresh set of plugs and a fresh set of ignition leads. And the result? Still nothing. Okay, so we've been troubleshooting. Jay behind the camera has been very helpful in trying to help me track down the electrical issue that is stopping this. So we saw we had no spark coming from the spark plugs. It's not from the leads. We traced it back to here, which is your coil pack, which is what kind of sends the spark across. We check that, we weren't getting any voltage to the coil pack, which implies it's in the main bit of the car. Now, if you come and look over here, that on there, that's been chewed by a rat or something. Now, that is bad news. Whenever an animal or rodent or something has been living in an engine, they like to eat wires. And if they eat a wire, you probably won't get any power anymore. So we've been trying to diagnose. We've tried increasing the ground from the engine. That's why we've got this here right now. No change, no nothing. We're not getting any power to the CAS, to the injectors, to the spark plugs. We're getting no power, even though we have a new battery, which is good enough to give power. So the next thing we're gonna look at is the ECU in the car, because that is what sends the signal to allow everything to go. I'm hoping that it's not in that, because that's quite costly. So hopefully there's something unplugged, but this is starting to feel, Jay, wouldn't you agree, like maybe this is the reason this car got parked up. Yeah. One day it wouldn't start again, or it was laid up over winter in a storage shed and it never started again because either something chewed through a cable or a capacitor in an ECU or something died and just stopped this car from ever running again. So hopefully, no, not hopefully, we are going to get to the bottom of why it doesn't start, because this has got to run again. And thankfully, after some poking around, Jay stumbled across something.
I was checking the cables on the ECU, going to the ECU, and I noticed that there's no power going to it. So then I thought maybe if we turn the ignition over, if it does exactly what it's been doing before, then that might allude to the fact that the ECU is just not even communicating.
You know more about electronics, Jay, but that looks fine to you?
Ultimately, what we'd be looking for is anything that's visually like discolored. So we're looking for dark spots. We're going to smell the ECU to see if it's burning. Capacitors, if that's bulging, then there's a problem with that. It looks fine. It looks fine.
It looks fine.
Absolutely
so
fine.
We reckon then there might be something, maybe a rat has found a way to chew wire in between the battery and the ECU wires.
Yeah, so now we're going to have to do the long task of tracing each wire and finding out exactly where it goes. So
Annoyed but not put off, we got to work finding the source of no power. Okay, it might look like only a few moments for you, but Jay and I have been in the depths of hell. We've been through every forum from here to the Philippines, and it looks like this could be one of the issues. I was wondering the whole time why the center console wasn't in. I think it was because they went looking for this. This is a main relay or an MPI fuse that sits down here behind the dashboard. It essentially controls all of the power going to the ECU and from the fuel pump. So when you switch the key in the ignition, this is what sends power to the fuel pump, to the ECU, and says, you're all good to go, start going. We're not sure yet if this doesn't work, but what we're gonna do is Jay's come up with a very good plan of jumping the power, the constant power that we know it gets, we've checked it, it's got 12 volts, to the one that sends power to the ECU, because we have no power to the ECU, we cannot get any power. So by jumping this, we'll be sending power straight to the ECU, bypassing the ignition, all that sort of stuff, and seeing if we get spark. If we get spark, this is our issue, and I must replace this. If we don't, we're still struggling and trying to fight. We've got more lights on the dash than we did before. We had our check engine light pop up, like as in like the check control. Before, when we turned this on, we only had 1 or 2 lights. Now, we have the full thing. Big progress happened off camera. We are very excited. So on these early Evos, for it to be able to crank properly, it needs a fuel pump signal. So we've put everything back together, we put the fuse back in, we had to put the fuel pump on, we turned the key, there was sparks. Can you confirm, Jay?
Yeah, there was spark.
There was good spark. Before we keep turning it over, I'm gonna drain what's left of the fuel tank. I think there's still, we can smell there's old fuel. The fuel pump we're gonna replace as well, but not right now. We're just gonna see if we can put some new fuel in it, make it safe. Is there good spark? Will it run? I'm gonna check the timing belt quickly to just make sure it's not imminently about to fail. If it's not, we'll just see if it starts, then we'll turn it off, and the next episode, we will do a full timing belt and get it going. Whew, this is exciting now. Jay and I have spent hours looking at wiring diagrams, plugging things in, unplugging them, adding ground, doing all sorts of stuff. This is cool, this is good. So looking along there, there's no cracks or anything that looks like it's about to fail. So what I'm gonna do is I will be changing this ASAP. Just see if we can get it running today. I'll leave the timing belt, we'll put the rest of it together, do the fuel system, drain that, fill it, and then see, will it run? So I was just going to look on the forum about how to drain the tank, what's the best way. And then as I read a comment saying, just undo the bolts, I was about to say to Jay, what do you mean? And Jay said, are there just bolts on the fuel tank that you can undo? And I believe there are, so that's not it leaking. That's why I've just put some penetrant on it. So in theory, this is about to be very stale old fuel. Oh, that is, if you had smell-o-vision, that is varnish. Right, it's a new day and I haven't been able to stop thinking about that green oil. At first I told myself maybe it's just some preparation oil that you put down the cylinders when you know you're going to be parking up a car for a long time, and that got contaminated. But it kept nagging at me. So I left the car for a few days, filled it up with some fresh oil beforehand, and drained it this morning. And what I saw is more of that green stuff. I put the boroscope inside the sump and it looked pristine. It looked lovely. No sign of any green mess. So I thought, okay, let's take off the valve cover. And what we found makes a lot more sense. This is with the valve cover removed, and if you look along this bottom side of cams, they look fine, but this top side has all kinds of white sludge. White means mixing oil and water. If we look at the cam cover here, this is as it sits in the engine. This bottom row is perfect, the top row had water. I think the cap has been left off for some time, and water and condensation has got into the camshaft, in through the oil cap here, and has got water on the cam. So while it's not great that we've been turning it over with this sort of stuff, it's probably something I should have checked before. What I can do now is try and clean off all of this white stuff. Then I'm gonna brake clean as much as I can, which again, is not always advisable, but then flush it through with oil a few times to get all of this last bit of nasty white stuff off. But I'm hoping that should stop this kind of oil contamination sort of stuff, meaning that we can quickly change the fuel pump in the car, which I now know is dead. It's making no noise at all. So we'll replace that, and then hopefully we're ready for a potential first startup. So after cleaning the cams as thoroughly as I physically could and adding fresh oil, it was time to move on to the final thing stopping this Evo from starting, a fuel pump. Okay, so I've now got the fuel pump system out of the car, and that is only thanks to a guy called Ant, a very nice guy on the Evo forum, got in contact and said, if you're gonna do your fuel pump, which you should do because they all go wrong on Evos, you need to look at this how-to guide, because you're gonna break it if you don't. And I very nearly did, and then I went back and checked what it said and realized I was doing it wrong. I'm the idiot. So here's what we've got. First things first, inside the tank is pretty clean now. I've gone through, I've cleaned it all out. it is now nice, no crud. This is the original fuel pump, and I believe is not running. I've tried multiple times, I've tried giving power to it, it doesn't work, and that would stop us from starting it. So it's a good thing that I ordered a little upgrade kit. This here is a Walbro 255. If you've modified cars before, you've definitely heard of it. It's a standard upgrade pump that you can chuck in most older cars, 80s, 90s Japanese stuff, and it will give you an improvement. So this pump here, it was a cheap upgrade. It's worth doing while we're in there. It will allow us to move up to the power goals that we're going for down the line. Fitting the new pump was simply a case of taking the old one apart and putting it back together again. I then put it back in the car, filled it up with fuel, and got ready for the moment of truth. Okay, so the fuel pump is now in, and as you've just seen, I've just filled it with some fuel. So it is now time to see if the fuel pump primes when we turn the key. We're going to pop the fuse back in, and then Trevor is helping me, as always. He's always coming over to help, and we're going to see if it starts, because spark we now should have, fuel we now should hopefully have, and then timing, and we'll see all of that in a minute. But it's a moment of truth. So time to crank the key and see what happens. We've got our fuel light on because we've got low fuel now, which is good. Straight away, just starts just like that. Now that I'm happy with. It sounds great. It sounds good. It genuinely sounds really good. So before I let it run any longer, this car doesn't appear to have any coolant in it. So I'm going to fill some coolant up in it now. We'll chuck a load of engine flush through the engine to try to get that last little bit of whatever it is in there. Let it run for a bit, see if it comes up to temperature. Then we'll drain it and we can finally put the oil in. But it starts. That is a result. After adding some fresh coolant and a dash of engine flush, I let the car run up to temperature, which led to an interesting discovery. Something maybe was living in the exhaust, or if you give it a small rev, Trev, it's definitely got some bits in there. So the car runs, we've drained the oil again, put in some fresh oil, put some engine flush in that oil. We're just seeing if it comes up to temperature, if the car's kind of happy. So far it seems okay. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to get in the car and see if the clutch works, because when I got this car, the clutch felt not right. There's something, either the throwout bearing isn't happy, and I'm hoping, while this is a win, it really wouldn't be a win if we had to take the gearbox out. I'm going to see first. Oh, that is stiff. Not only is it stiff, pushing it has just bent the clutch pedal. Yeah, that is stuck. So what I'm going to try is I'm going to turn the car off, put it in gear, see if the car starts in gear, then turn it off. But if it doesn't work, then we know there's something we need to look at in our clutch. But oh, this is good. Right, I'll turn it off. That is now first gear. Oh, a look from Trev says there's not much happening. Uh-oh. And if I'm gonna give it, well, it's a little bit seized. I'm gonna give it a tiny bit of throttle. No, not engaged. So I believe that the clutch is stuck in, because right now I can shift the gear and nothing's happening with the engine running. So the clutch is stuck. It's not gonna drive anytime soon, but it runs. I should have been happy to leave it there, but I really wanted to see this Evo drive. So I got back under the car to see if there was anything that could be done about the stuck clutch pedal. While we were draining the old oil and getting ready to put the new one in, that there is your clutch slave cylinder. When you push the clutch, that pops out, pushes this fork, which pushes the clutch in. However, that should be free. It should not currently be pushed out. We just tried with a big flathead to move it back, nearly snapped the screwdriver in half. So that there is our issue. Well, something to do with this. Either the clutch is stuck in or the slave cylinder is stuck out. So we need to have a look and see if we can free this. If we can, it might drive. Okay, so we've just managed to pull the clutch slave out, and that is the state of the piston inside. No wonder it was stuck. Because the piston was stuck, completely shoved out, it wouldn't let us move the clutch in or out at all, therefore just holding it in position. So in theory, what I need is a new clutch slave. I will buy one of those, but we want to see if we can get it going today. So we're going to have a mess around with that slave and just see if we can make it just move just once more, to see if we can drive this car out the garage, because I want to see it drive. So Trevor and I got to work cleaning the old slave cylinder up as best as possible, hoping and praying that it would work, even just enough to drive this old Evo once. Oh, there we go. There it is. Right, so if we now see if we can clean it up a little bit in there, and then just to get it moving today, might have a chance. Instead of throwing away the old slave cylinder and waiting a couple of days for it to come in and leaving this stuck on the lift, Trevor and I have been hard at work cleaning out the old one. It's not perfect by any means, but now, easy. There we go. That will work enough, hopefully, to get the wheels spinning, to get this car off the lift and drive it for the first time in nearly 18 years. After Trevor fit the slave cylinder and I managed to execute the worst oil pour of my adult life, it was time to see if our work had finally paid off. It's the moment of truth. We have seen if we can get the slave cylinder work. If it doesn't work now, it means that the clutch is stuck to the flywheel, and that means gearbox off, engine apart, a big job. So I'm praying, hoping and praying that this works. Clutch pedal is bouncy, but there. We have a clutch pedal. Okay, car starts, clutch in gear. Are they working? Yes! That is an Evo that's been off the road for 18 years, running and driving. All that was left now was to see if the Evo could drive using its own power for the first time in well over a decade. Okay, moment of truth. Will this car drive out of this unit? It was pushed in and has been pushed around for the last 17 years. But now, maybe, just maybe, it will drive. And there it is, a Mitsubishi Evo, back from the dead after 17 years of sitting. I took a gamble and the price I paid for this car, £4,250. A fuel pump, a battery, a load of help from Trevor, and it's running again. I'm so excited. I'll see you in a few weeks when we get this car ready to go back on the road again. If you want to watch another 2DC video here, and by the way, some of you might not know, we have another main channel called Top Dead Center right here. Go give it a watch.